I'll tell you what we're going to try and do this afternoon. We won't actually be shooting this scene until, I should think, between 5 and 6. But I've got you all here. No, this is fine. I've got you all here. What? The policemen know it's where that blue police car is at the moment. Okay? The scene we're doing today is a scene where Burt Lancaster, who's playing a big oil tycoon in our film, he's being worried up in the very top there where he's got his offices by a man who's following him about a bit, and he wants to get away from him. And at the same time, he decides to leave the country for a while and go off to Scotland to do some business there because his men in Scotland aren't doing the business well enough.
I was approached to play this particular role, this character, Happer, by Mr. Putnam. I thought it was just a magnificently written script, terribly funny, with a great deal of soft, light charm. It's very subtle and very humorous, and it's really a story about greed. Well, it's a kind of a challenging character for me, and as frankly speaking, at this particular moment, I'm not sure how he ought to be played. The temptation is, because it is a comedy, is to try to be a little funny, and that would be very dangerous. On the other hand, although I feel the character must be played straight, he's a man who's really kind of troubled about what he's doing with his life in spite of all his wealth and all of his achievements, if you will. And so he's kind of at an age in his life where he's beginning to size up what he's particularly done. Nevertheless, you do look for some little area of eccentricity which might lend itself to humor without being, oh, aren't I funny kind of thing. That is to be avoided at all costs. But I just love the script so much, so I like to be a part of it.
It's about a culture clash. It's really about the Texas Oil Company, who comes to Houston to buy up a bay for a new refinery, and their interrelationship with the locals, and the kind of dance that goes on. I think it's got a lot to say, and it's funny.
Well, the very first thing that happened was we were in London just finishing the editing on Gregory's Girl, because we did the last couple of months down there. And at the very same time, David Putnam was just finishing Chariots. He was more or less at the same stage. And I went into a tobacconist one day to buy some chewing gum, and he was in there buying a newspaper. So I hadn't seen him for a few months, so he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm hanging about here." So that kind of re-established our kind of communication. And then a couple of days later, he phoned me up and said, "What are you doing on Wednesday night?" I said, "Nothing." He said, "OK, I'll see you at BAFTA at 7 o'clock. So I went down to BAFTA, and he'd organised a screening of Whiskey Galore, you know. So we sat in, it was just David and Linda, his secretary, and myself, and we sat and watched Whiskey Galore, and it was very nice. And we came out and said that was quite a nice film, and he said cheerio, and we went away. But so I knew that something was underway, and I knew vaguely that he was thinking about maybe we should make a film together, and maybe it should be Scottish, you know. So that's really how it started. And then a few days after that, we actually sat down and talked about it. I think he's just as kind of shy as I am, really, in that kind of way. But eventually we started talking about it, and the idea of a film based on the oil thing and all that came about.
All this is one shot of him as if he's just come through that door there, the one from left, walks down these steps, he hurries along, and gets into his limousine, which will be parked where that police car is at the moment, and the car pulls away.
I like the idea of it going off down the street.
Down that way so we can get Harper Boulevard, yeah?
Can you walk along using your telephone?
Sure.
Yes. I think, as long as Bill's happy with this, I think it's rather a nice little thing going on, that there's somebody walking along here, maybe just over there, telephoning at the same time. I'll have to check that with Bill. We want to grab before it gets too dark, and this side of the area has got to look as if it's for real. Can all the background people now take their first positions, please? Stand by, and action!
We used to watch the takes on a little video monitor, and sometimes it would be quite odd when I looked through the monitor and saw Burt Lancaster. I thought I was watching a movie at home, you know. I said, what's he doing in my picture? Cut! He was terrific to work with. I was a little bit in trepidation of him, obviously, at first, because apart from anything else, I hadn't really used a lot of adult actors in anything I'd done before. There was a few in Gregory still who were good, but they were mates in a way, so really it wasn't a good yardstick.
Cut. Cut. Right, back to your first mark, please.
That was the very first shot that we'd worked on together. The scene where he has to burst through a couple of policemen, and the policemen also were quite timid of him. So I was saying to these cops, OK, it's Burt Lancaster, but when he comes towards you, just you stay together and let him force his way through you. But the first couple of takes, they would ease themselves apart. So eventually he chimed in as well, and he said, look guys, just, let me do it. And he saw me watching him do this, and he said, oh, we don't mind me talking to the other performers. We want our relationship to go well, so, if you don't want me to do that, just tell me, Even at that level, he was caring about the thing, caring about me, of all people,
Hold the traffic now, please. Stand by, everybody. Action.
It was a sweet relationship, it was good. Because I think everyone was slightly worried about how it would go. And it was also a big number, lots of people and lots of, controlling crowds and stuff like that, which is something I'm not great at, because I tend to like to hide behind the camera and anything else that there is to hide behind. So for that reason, it was also a big number for me.
We're just checking in on the tape.
Okay, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah, great. Lovely. Good.
How's it get?
Terrific. Got it.
Bill Forsyth said that he wrote the part with you in mind.
Well, he never told me that. Because I've asked him twice, I said, how do I play this part? And he hasn't been able to tell me.
How do you feel about playing?
Also, I don't understand him when he talks.
Well, when I started to write the character, Harper, I just began to hear his voice saying the words. And he has a very distinctive style of delivery. Hearing his voice in my head actually began to affect the dialogue. And I think in one or two scenes I actually wrote dialogue which sounds like his dialogue, the way he would say things. And once I had the image of Lancaster in my mind with that character, it just wouldn't go away, it just persisted throughout the whole script. But I remember the first time I met him, they found out that he was in Rome, on this particular day. So go to Rome and meet him, So it's just a complete wild goose, because he's going to be in London at the end of the week. I didn't know that, so I ended up meeting him in Rome. That was the first time I met him. And we talked about the script, we met, and he could speak Italian, so he ordered some espresso coffee and all that. And we talked about the script, and I was a little bit wary about one thing I had learned by that time was that actors tend to, no matter how much they would pretend not to, they tend to personally identify with the characters that they're going to play. And I had twigged this. And so I was a little bit wary about telling them how exactly I felt about Harper, because in my opinion Harper is a madman, he's insane. And all that the scenes in the film do are just show different sides of his insanity. So rather than, come out, and because he was saying, how do you want me to play this guy, and I was saying, well, he's a very complex character, every scene is very different, and we see a different side to his character. And I would go on like that for a wee while, and then he would say, yeah, but how do you want me to play him? And I said, well, So eventually we kind of stumbled through a conversation like that, and he was still a bit unsatisfied, I could tell. Apart from learning later on that he hadn't understood a word that I said because of my accent, but he was still a bit perplexed, so he just kind of, he finished his coffee and he thought for a minute or two, and he said, well, Bill, I suppose if I can play Moses, I can play this guy.
Hi, Bill. What is that jam thing?
You always got a jam butty in your hand.
Jam what?
It's called breakfast.
A jam butty. It's a sandwich in Yorkshire.
Call it a piece and jam.
Huh?
Call it a piece and jam.
A piece and jam.
A piece and jam.
Do you?
A piece of bread is called a piece, and you put jam on it, it's called a piece of jam.
This is called a J&T, Jack and Tie.
It's quite a good thing for him to, in order to actually learn the process, he's actually going to be right in the middle of it. Yeah. Okay, any other problems?
Right, Mike, say when you're ready. Mike, keep the chatter down a bit around here now, please. Okay, Mike. Turn over.
Okay. And action. And cut. Okay.
Nice, that was all.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. It'll just be like 4 or 5 seconds or something. Right.
The great things I think, are the fact that the people have come together so well. We have some very experienced English-based technicians and some less experienced but extremely willing and enthusiastic Scottish-based technicians. And for me, that's one of the great bonuses.
It seems to be Cockneys and Glaswegians.
It does. It's a metropolitan film, a wee bit. I think there's one poor Edinburgher, but he's persisting.
51, take 2. Here we go.
It was something that David and I kind of understood from the word go, that we would use as many people in Scotland that were available and that there was jobs for. And it meant one or two people, in terms of Gregory's Guild, slipping back a grade because, you know, obviously without money, the financiers needed, you know, kind of guarantees of professional status and all that stuff. But everyone, I think, benefited from working with other people, you know, who had more experience and stuff like that. So it worked out very well indeed. Well, I'm actually trying to cue it so that Betty's line comes just as we're coming to our rest.
Perfect.
She was just a teensy wee bit. Yeah, she was just a teensy wee bit late there, but I think we'll get lucky. Yeah.
Okay. They must have gone slower that time because you ended early, eh?
Yeah.
Right, back to your first one.
Right there?
Yeah.
Tracking back. There we are. Tracking, viewing, and tracking, viewing.
Here we go then, background action. Cut. Just one more, please. First positions, everybody again. Once more, please. Working well.
My areas of responsibility are more everything behind the leading actors, so that while he's worrying about directing and organising what the leading actors do, I have to think that everything behind that is accurately and well done. Whereas he's always really concentrating on what the actors say in the foreground, and he composes all the scenes and all that sort of thing.
Fine, good. Cut.
Cut.
Good, fine for me.
And in many ways, I'm just his general help. I mean, in everything that he hasn't got time to worry about or think about, I have to look after.